Me and Yumiko had part 4 of the free response, or question 4 of the free response rather, and the question was about the 25th reunion celebration of some random class in 1988. And so basically the director computed the mean income of 50 attendees of their reunion to be $189,952, and then released it in the news saying our class is really successful and they had this really high mean income. So part A of our question was, what would be a statistical advantage of using the median of the reported incomes rather than the mean as the estimator of the typical income?
Okay, so the reason the median would be a better representation is because the median is resistant to outliers, so it's not affected by extreme data points. So a really rich person or a really poor person wouldn't pull or skew the data, the mean, or the data. And it would be a better representation as a whole because it would vary less.
So it would especially be advantageous if there were poor people in the sample, because then the poor people would have brought the mean down, but not the median. And then for part B, the question was, he felt that the entire population of the graduating class, their mean income might be different than the one that represented the entire class as a whole. So he basically planned 2 survey methods in order to get the mean income of the entire class. The first method was to send an email to the entire graduating class and ask them to complete an online form. And then they just assumed that around 600 people of around the 7,000 would respond, and therefore they would have a large enough population. Method 2 was to select a simple random sample of the members of the class and then call them by phone and follow up in order to make sure they got data from everyone who was included in the SRS. And they would only use 100 members of the class. So then the question for part B was, which of these 2 methods would you select for estimating the average yearly income of the class in 1988, and then it has to explain the reasoning by comparing the 2 methods. So there's 2 reasons why Yumiko and I chose method 2 as being the best method. And it's because it has less of a response bias and less of a voluntary response bias. So having less of a response bias is since everyone has to be followed up with, there is no, I'm going to respond to this, I'm not going to respond to this. In method 2, because they're all being contacted through phone and it's stated that it's all going to be followed up, there obviously is just no response bias there. With the email survey instead, on the other hand, which is in method 1, it's stated that maybe 600 people will reply, and so there's room for people just to not reply, and obviously richer people are probably more likely to reply because they're like, I'm awesome, I'm rich, I'm going to tell everyone how rich I am, and vice versa with poor people. So, and then the other reason method 2 is better because there's no voluntary response bias. So going off of what I just said about rich people wanting to say they're rich and poor people wanting to say they're poor, well also it's much harder to lie over the phone about how wealthy you are than to lie over email. If all you have to do is fill out a form, it's very easy for people to just inflate what their income is. And if they're being called on the phone, and then it's kind of vague what they mean by follow-up, but if they mean follow-up, then it's more likely that people won't be able to lie. So that's why method 2 is better. And that was the entire question.